it's some
Bix.
show. Oh, it's some
Bix.
bad show tonight. Oh, baby, come on. Oh, yeah, it's some
Bix.
show.
Hello, everybody. This is David Bixenspan here on The Bix Show. And I'm not going to do a very long intro because I'm very bad at them, so all I'm going to say is that basically this is just going to be me doing whatever, interviews, talking to other writers, friends, etc. Whatever comes up during that given week, whatever I can manage, it will be here. And thankfully, it looks like I'm going to have a built-in audience for this already, because if you subscribed to the trademarks, or if you were listening to the trademarks through the Voices of Wrestling feed, you are getting this already. So I hope you all enjoy it. And if you don't, I hope you're all very nice about it. So right now on the Skype-o-matic, oh god, that was terrible, I have SureDog.com contributor Patrick Wyman, as well. He was also the host or co-host, or Bobby, like, is there a Bobby Heenan type dispute between you and Connor over this?
Oh yeah, there's an ongoing dispute about who exactly is the host and who is the co-host of Heavy Hands.
Yes.
Like it is explicitly Connor's podcast, but that does not stop us from going back and forth on the topic. I'm not just going to let him walk away with that, you know?
Yeah. Are you going to split away eventually and take like the last quarter of the show as the Patrick Wyman show?
Yeah, I think that's the plan. Yeah,
Okay.
Eventually, just when he thinks he's safe, it's all mine.
Okay. So I had wanted to have you on anyway, and then all of a sudden your wrestling fandom was reignited this past weekend.
Oh my god, dude! I mean, so I've always enjoyed the bleed over from mixed martial arts and professional wrestling. I mean, I love the fact that, you know, I fire up the old Twitter machine on a Monday night and I get the Raw updates or I get the updates during a pay-per-view. Like, I've always enjoyed professional wrestling, but I haven't watched it since basically the end of the WCW. But this last weekend's WrestleMania and kind of Brock Lesnar's return and his kind of resurgence in the last 6 or 7 months or so has really gotten me more interested in it. Like, It's very much Lesnar that has drawn me back in. I just think he's the very best.
Yeah. See, I think it's interesting since you're about my age and the end of WCW was what turned you off, because they lost like half of the adult wrestling audience basically disappeared once WCW went out of business.
Yeah, I think I was about 15 when I completely stopped watching. Like, I really watched heavily from about 1997 to about 2000 or so. And then after that, I was just kind of done with it. Like, I don't know, I can't remember why exactly I stopped watching. I mean, I think I kind of ran out of time, but like, I didn't particularly enjoy what the WWF was doing. I didn't really care for The Rock. I thought that I didn't care for Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like, I had very much grown attached to the WCW stable. And that was very much where my fandom was. And then, you know, the end of WCW and them coming over to the WWE, like, that just, it didn't do it for me. And I was just kind of like, oh, okay, I'm okay not being involved in this anymore. Yeah,
for me, I mean, I don't think I ever considered just stopping watching then, but it was this weird gut shot because WCW was so different and it really did have its own audience. I mean, I think people still don't realize that.
I mean, I definitely, when I thought about that, because I didn't even really think about the WWF all that much, like, when I thought about it, I mean, I could just considered it to be something entirely different. Like I was aware of its existence, but I didn't really pay attention. Like, I didn't follow the storylines. Like, I mean, outside of the biggest names, I wasn't even really paying attention to who was there. So, like, I still to this day do not get like Mick Foley. Like, because I wasn't watching for any of that. Like, I like, his appeal has never made sense to me because I wasn't watching those matches ever.
Right. Your window was kind of like right when everything got hot. And you didn't really watch before then like I would have been. So, right, you wouldn't have seen Mick Foley in WCW or in ECW or anything like that. So he just kind of was a guy that you didn't get.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, I remember seeing like him cutting promos in like a boiler room or something and thinking just like, what in the hell is going on here? Like the whole thing totally went over my head. And I feel like that was true for a lot of, of what they were doing at that point in general. Like it just didn't feel like it was for me. And I was okay with it not being for me. Like I didn't feel like I had to watch that to be a wrestling fan. For me, the WCW was enough. And I mean, like I was very into the, like I had some real strong opinions on the NWO angle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that was when Mankind was still what was it? He was like a childhood piano prodigy whose mother eventually was abusive, broke his fingers with the hammer, or slammed the piano down on his fingers, and that's why he wore the thing on his fingers in the first place. And then he lived in the sewer with rats, and I think that's how the whole boiler room thing started. They abandoned that after like a few months or something. Then he eventually just became Mick Foley in a wacky mask.
Yeah, and like, see, that would have made much more sense to me. I think I hit it at just the wrong. I think I hit it at just the wrong time, where like all I was getting was this increasingly bizarre series of images as to who Mankind was, and I'm like, okay, I'm okay with that not being my thing. Like, I don't know what it was. It just like the whole thing was kind of a turnoff for me, and I think it's unfortunate because I really think I would have enjoyed The Rock, like. That particular phase of The Rock, I think I would have enjoyed a very great deal. But like just the whole way that the WWF was operating at that point, I think was kind of antithetical to my tastes as a wrestling fan. Mm-hmm. Like as strange as that sounds, like I just never really, the whole thing never really clicked for me.
Yeah. So in the past 14 years or so, had you been watching with any regularity, or just occasionally you would just look over? Even then, not really, or you were just following, and then just recently, like following people on Twitter who were talking about it anyway. Like, where kind of did you fall in that scale?
So I would watch the occasional thing, like I watched WrestleMania. Not last year, but the 2 years before that, I would watch it. So my wife does PR for Frito-Lay, which obviously has a partnership with WWE, and so she was at SummerSlam when it was in Los Angeles. I don't know if that was last year or the year before.
It was like the last 5 years.
Oh, okay, yeah. So she was there working the event the year before last, mm-hmm. and my wife, not a professional wrestling fan, but I watched the event and I enjoyed that a very great deal. And like really, what's drawn me back is just Lesnar, like because I think Lesnar is the most compelling figure in like combat sports / sports entertainment. I just think he is Middle America's id personified. Like, I don't think there's anybody who better sums up what like Middle America is about than Brock Lesnar, and in everything, like just the shamefully over the top, like the utter lack of self-awareness, and at the same time the just like, well, he's Brock Lesnar, you know, like to me like Brock Lesnar to me says something very like profound about America as a whole, and I really enjoy that.
Right. The Brock Lesnar in WWE and UFC are also the same guy who was the Brock Lesnar who told a reporter when he was on the Vikings practice squad, "I don't like gays, you write that down in your notebook."
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know if you listen to Ben Folks and Chad Dundas's podcast, the co-main event, but Folks told the story on this week's episode about the one time that he went to interview Lesnar. And the way that he put it was like, there was nothing that you could tell Brock Lesnar that would make him take you seriously, because he's Brock Lesnar and he's convinced that anything that he thinks already is just good enough. And I think that's like, I honestly think that sums up like a vast swath of America in general, that like, well, we don't need to be told anything. What we believe is good enough because we believe it. It doesn't need any sort of external validation or facts. Like that's just like, I think that's something like really deeply revealing about the American mindset. And like that, and that just is Lesnar. I mean, regardless of what he's doing, whether it's WWE, whether he's in professional wrestling, or whether he's in MMA, like that just very much is Lesnar. And like, I've just always found that incredibly enjoyable. Plus, of course, Lesnar wrestling a match is just something tremendously special.
Now, have you gone out of your way at all to see any of his stuff from before he came back, from his original run?
Not at all. Should I?
Yes, some of it. I'll try to figure out which stuff you should watch later. I mean, it's not the same because they're playing up the whole UFC MMA thing with him now. So it's not like he just legitimately beat the hell out of people originally like he does now in every match.
Mm-hmm.
But you did watch the John Cena match, though.
Oh God, yeah.
Well, the first John Cena match, right? The one with the where Cena won.
No,
that wasn't the one you watched. Okay, you watched the one where Lesnar beat him up and won the title.
Oh yeah, just dropped like 20 suplexes on him. That was which just spoke to me on some very basic level.
Right. You should watch the one. The one you absolutely need to watch is the first one from when Lesnar came back against Cena. Where he basically throws legit elbows at Cena and busts him open in the first 30 seconds.
Seriously?
Yes.
That's awesome. Like, I mean, I can't remember who said this, and I don't want to like claim credit for thinking about it this way, but whoever said this is right. Like, that Lesnar post his return, he wrestles like he doesn't know it's fake. Like, I can't remember who said that, but like, to an outside observer, it very much looks like he's actually beating the crap out of people in some like deep and profound way. Like, and it, not that you don't know that it's not real, but like his performance feels so real that you can fool yourself very easily. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and also he did actually elbow John Cena in the head and split his head open.
I mean, that's just not at all surprising. Is it? Like just Lesnar doing Lesnar things?
No. And actually, I'm trying to figure out if I should spoil it for you because the most Brock Lesnar thing actually happens in that match.
I mean, because I didn't they cut some kind of promo like right after he got back where he was wearing a sombrero and singing La Cucaracha?
No. That was before his match against Eddie Guerrero. Actually, right before he left the first time.
Oh, okay. All I remember is that I remember the promo, and I remember it popped up again right after he came back.
Yes.
And I remember seeing that and thinking, okay, that feels like peak Lesnar right there, because that guy's got some hot takes on immigration.
Right. And of course the GIF of the dance part shows up on Bloody Elbow among other places all the time to this day.
As it should. I mean, that is a peak moment right there.
So actually, should I spoil it for you that the still possibly the greatest moment of Brock Lesnar's, at least since his return, is in that first Cena match. I'm trying to figure out if I should spoil it for you or not, or to tell you to watch it, because I think people will figure out what I'm talking about because it's right near the end. It's the one that's right near the end of the match. Or should I just tell you?
No, definitely spoil it for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Cena is on the apron. Lesnar sets the steps up in the ring, and this is like a no DQ street fight. He launches himself off the steps at Cena. Something goes wrong. Lesnar tumbles to the floor without really hitting Cena. Mm-hmm. He pops right up, stomps around, roars, and then they get back to what they were supposed to do.
The roar part feels really important there. It feels like it ties the whole thing together.
Yes. And then the next part which sets up the finish of the match is that he does what I guess he was supposed to do and runs straight into a legit punch from Cena, who has a heavy chain wrapped around his hand. Lesnar also gets busted open without blading, and that leads to the end of the match.
Good God. See, that sounds very much like my jam. I cannot wait to watch this now. This is the beauty of it, is I'm like going back into this. I know I don't feel like I have to watch everything, which kind of ironically is where I've gotten with MMA now. I don't feel like I have to watch everything live. So I can just pick and choose the things that I want to watch to bring myself up to speed, or if something awesome happens, I can immediately go and watch that now. But not trying to put the pressure on myself to watch everything and to keep up as everything happens. It's tremendously freeing.
Yeah. The problem with WWE right now, though, is Raw being 3 hours, and, like, if you're like me and you have to watch it, it is a bad start to the week, even if it's a good Raw. Because 3 hours is just so long.
Yeah, that's a lot of content. I mean, how long is... this tells you how long it's been since I've watched, but how long is, like, SmackDown?
SmackDown is 2 hours, but nothing really happens on SmackDown. So you don't necessarily have to watch SmackDown. It's just very strange.
Yeah, I mean, that tells you how long it's been since I watched something. Like, I mean, like, I guess I've watched Raw a couple of times because I have friends who are into it, and if we happen to be getting together on a Monday, we'll throw Raw on. But, like, I guess that tells you how long it's been since I really tried to watch and pay attention, is I couldn't even tell you, you know?
Yes. So, the Grapplemania was Sunday, and you ended up watching it yesterday, right? After deciding to shell out your $9.99 for WWE Network.
I did. The McMahons, you know, after 20 years of trying, the McMahons finally got my money.
Mm-hmm. So, overall, what did you think of WrestleMania?
I thought it was incredible. It is pure entertainment from start to finish. And, like, after having watched a lot of shitty MMA, that oftentimes MMA just runs so hard from the very idea of being entertaining that it's refreshing to watch something that you know is designed to entertain you. Like, just from the perspective of, like, not having sat down to watch a pro wrestling show, like, in a long time, that was a weird difference to me, and something that occurred to me. Like, it's weird to know that the object is explicitly to entertain the viewer, you know, and not, like, having that happen as a byproduct of you know, violent spectacle.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that was my big takeaway, was just how much different that experience was. Also, I mean, you know, Lesnar Reigns was incredible. I enjoyed the Undertaker and Bray Wyatt. I thought they did a pretty dang good job of selling that. But my favorite bit was, you know, Rousey and The Rock. I'm still marking out over that. I still think it was incredible.
Now, I was talking to you a little bit about this yesterday. I feel like, based on how everything went, that it seems like they are doing a match next year. I mean, that seems to be what most people, at least that do follow wrestling regularly, are thinking. And you were kind of asking me, I mean, what does it look like to you? And I was thinking, you know, two things: that they didn't really have her do anything to Stephanie past kind of threaten her, and that they kind of left it open, and also that if she does a match, I mean, there's nothing for UFC to object to. She is not going to be doing a back and forth wrestling match where she could get hurt. Yeah,
I don't think that at this point, you made this point, and I think it was a really good one when we were chatting yesterday, that at this point, the UFC and the WWE are not really in the same business. You know, that they're not really competing for a limited pool of pay-per-view dollars anymore. Like, given the way that the WWE's business model has changed, and the way that the UFC's has changed as well, with less reliance on pay-per-view revenue as a total share of their revenue on an annual basis, like, the business has changed, and where there is still overlap is in terms of fandom. And that you can do a lot in both directions to bring in new fans. You know, like, I'm sure there were a lot of MMA fans who are now considering, who were exposed to the WWE product as a result of Ronda Rousey, and to a lesser extent Brock Lesnar, who are thinking, oh yeah, you know, this is interesting. Let me get into this. I mean, I'm one of them, for crying out loud. Like, but then the flip side to it is there are a lot of professional wrestling fans who are right in the demographic that the UFC needs, who just need a way to be exposed to the product. This seems like a win-win situation for everybody, you know? Like, right. And you can say many things about Dana White, but he's not an idiot when it comes to stuff like this. And if there is not, like, a direct conflict of interest, and it doesn't seem like there's any reason to think that there would be, why wouldn't you let her do it? That's incredible exposure right in your key demos.
Right. And if it's a mixed tag team match, like it seemed like they were hyping, then it's not even a one-on-one match. It's probably her chasing Stephanie around the ring a couple times, getting tagged in, and then she hip tosses her and armbars her, and that's the match.
Yeah, and that's it. That's all you got to do. It's like, and, you know, Rousey is so talented. She could sell. I mean, I think she would probably end up doing a little more than that, but like that's just kind of my.
That's all you need, though. That's all you need, though.
Oh, yeah, you don't need – I mean, this does not need to be Rousey hip-tossing Triple H 17 times around the ring. Like, that's – you don't have to do that, and I don't think that they would be down for that anyway for a wide variety of reasons. Like, that just doesn't seem like the kind of thing that's going to happen. But, like, you know, I think this is – there's no reason for the WWE and the UFC to be enemies here. Like they reach the same demographics. There's like they're not really competing for each other's money anymore. Like and plus, I have always thought that there's just so much that MMA can learn from pro wrestling. I actually talked about that a little bit with Josh Barnett when I interviewed him a few weeks ago. Like that there's a lot that MMA should be learning from pro wrestling and vice versa. This is a two-way street. They operate in the same space. There's no good reason for them to be somehow antipathetic towards each other.
Yeah, and also what we have to consider is that she would probably be teaming with giant movie star friend Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson too. I mean, it's not like she'd just be getting publicity from WrestleMania.
Yeah, there is a tremendous for all of the complaints that you could lodge towards the WWE with the way that they've booked storylines and the way that they've booked matches, the one thing you can't really criticize them for is the star building apparatus that they've built over the years. And that's something that if you can get even peripheral access to that, like you should absolutely be trying to do that. And the Rock is a product of that apparatus, and now he's gone above and beyond it. But like that should tell you what kind of tools they have available to them, and that's another way that the UFC should be learning from them. And I think to some extent they are. But like, yeah, if you can associate Ronda Rousey repeatedly with a figure like The Rock and with that kind of star building machine, like there's no reason not to do it. No reason at all.
Mm. Now, having been someone that wasn't really keeping up with things that much, how much sense did the ending of Lesnar Reigns make sense to you?
Oh, it made a lot of sense to me. Like I had followed. I knew that Rollins had won Money in the Bank. I watched the segment with Jon Stewart, which I just enjoyed the hell out of. So like I've been kind of following this, and I got a feel for Rollins' character and who he's supposed to be here, and I just thought it was perfect because it made so much sense based on how they had built that character, and also just the desire to make everybody a winner coming out of WrestleMania, except for Lesnar. But, I mean, now he's got just the juiciest storylines to work with for at least the next few months.
Right, but he didn't lose, and that's the whole thing. It's Brock Lesnar didn't lose, but he had his shiny toy taken away from him.
Mm-hmm. And that's perfect because you get, like, you can either... that gives you multiple directions to work with as a storyteller, right? Like either you can use that to fuel like an even deeper heel turn for him, or you can present Lesnar as the aggrieved, righteous champion in search of what's rightfully his, right?
Right.
So or some combination of those two, which may be the best case scenario.
Well, I mean, really, if you look at the whole show, you have 4 guys in that one title picture that all got set up for feuds for the next however many months. You have Orton as the last guy who beat the new champion. You have Lesnar as the champion who lost his title without being pinned, and you have Reigns who had the titles he should have won, or however you want to put it, kind of stolen away from him. So you have plenty of different permutations that you can do without even really getting too stale, as long as they don't screw it up too badly on Raw, which sometimes they do, and trying to figure out what to do each week to fill 3 hours. But that's a whole nother issue.
I mean, do you think that, like, it seemed to me watching the match, and I could have gone in with my own expectations and understanding of how it was supposed to play out. Mm-hmm. Do you think that this is that it's a genuine turning point for Roman Reigns, that like people are going to take him more seriously and not kind of reflexively dislike him as the chosen favorite?
Possibly, but that's something where we kind of have to wait till next Monday to get a better idea, I think. Because, last night's the post-WrestleMania Raw, and it's all the fans who traveled in, and so they're going to be anti-Reigns anyway, even though if you really look back at the match, the fans were starting to cheer his near falls more. They were sort of more into it. Like I think that last spear he hit on Lesnar where he got the near fall, the fans were like, it was more like 1, 2, as opposed to cheering that Lesnar kicked out.
Yeah, it seemed like he got an actual pop, like as that match went deeper. And so I'm genuinely curious to see how this works out because, again, this is just me popping into the story late, but like, I've never like I understand the criticisms of Reigns as maybe not being ready, and he's definitely nothing special on the mic at this point. But that stuff doesn't happen overnight, and like I've never understood the just genuine dislike of him, like a seeming genuine dislike for him because he seems like a nice enough guy. He's certainly got the presence, he's got the look. It's not like he's not fun to watch work a match.
I think it's a combination of a few things. It's a little weird because it's not like he seems fake the way people thought Cena was that kind of led to the Cena backlash originally. Mm-hmm. It's a mix, it's that he didn't seem ready. It's that they brought Daniel Bryan back when they could have waited a little. They didn't have to put Daniel Bryan in the Royal Rumble. I think if they didn't put Daniel Bryan in the Royal Rumble and then maybe they just brought him back at the next pay-per-view or whatever, it wouldn't have been as big a problem. Mm-hmm. Because again, people see it as taking it from the guy they like more. Whereas if they just... Because you have to remember, nobody actually knew that Daniel Bryan was cleared to... Well, he wasn't actually cleared to wrestle when he made the announcement, but that he was healthy. Mm-hmm. Like, even within wrestling. So there was no reason for them to do what they did. And as far as what else it is, it's that... he is actually a good speaker. If you watch him on talk shows, if you watch him do appearances, if you watch the promos he did before he was so overly scripted, where they kind of did the man a few words thing, but he still had some good lines, he can do that. It's just that Vince McMahon started personally scripting his interviews. So, you wouldn't have seen this, but a few months ago, for example, he... what was I forget the exact line, but he called someone, I think Rollins, maybe a pile of suffering succotash.
Wow. That is a line. That is a line right there.
Yeah. So it's really not all his fault. I mean, he isn't ready to be the guy yet because they see him as the next Rock or the next Cena, which he could be, but I don't think he is yet. So I think it's that people knew that they were so all in with him so early too, that it didn't click for people, especially since the fans had been very into him as part of the Shield and then a little bit after. And then he kind of got derailed when he got the hernia and he was out after recovering from surgery and then didn't really get back to where he was before.
Yeah. I mean, he really has a kind of a tremendous charisma about him. So like, I get why they want to push him, and like it seems like that could be a really good thing if you handle it right. But like the part that kind of blows my mind is that it's so obvious that he needs polish. I mean, I'm a total outside observer and I can still see that he needs polish, and that not just because I know that that's the criticism. Like it could not possibly be more clear that he's just not quite there yet. Like there's like, I'm trying to think of how to put this, and this is totally anecdotal, but like it seems like there's a slight bit of discomfort with him. Like he's not totally aware that he's not totally comfortable in his own skin yet as like playing that role. And like if he can, like if you can see it, then he's feeling it, I guess.
Yeah, and also they're kind of, at least on TV, in media they let him talk about it, but on TV they're not letting him really be self-aware enough when it comes to dealing with the fans who react negatively. Like with Cena, they kind of reacted quickly and figured out what to do with it. But with Reigns, it seems like they're kind of letting him be a little too oblivious, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I can see that. That makes a lot of sense.
Right. But I understand every reason why they want to go with him, and I think he will get there. When he was, I think it was just that he seemed so much better than he actually was when they had him more protected in tag team matches all the time and stuff, that they just didn't realize that he wasn't quite there yet. Because like if you were to go back and look at his stuff from like a year ago when he was in the tag matches and stuff, they protected him so well, because like even if he had a singles match, it was against someone like Daniel Bryan, someone where you couldn't see any holes in what he was doing. So you would think, oh yeah, that makes sense that he'll be the guy in a year. But he didn't quite get there yet. They didn't have him doing enough singles matches like on house shows to get ready. So I think in a year he could be there, though. I just think they pulled the trigger too soon. Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing. This is true of everything in terms of sports and entertainment. But like, everything takes time. Like, this is true whether we're talking about becoming a pay-per-view draw in MMA or boxing or whatever. Like or even just in terms of skill development. Like, stuff doesn't happen overnight. You need time to learn the necessary skills. You need time to get yourself exposed to the right sections of the audience, because it's not necessarily the same people who are watching week in and week out. It's going to take you time to get over. Like that, expecting somebody to come out of the womb fully formed with everything that they're going to need to become a star, like that just doesn't happen overnight. And like, it's a matter of needing to adjust expectations, not adjust your opinion of the person themselves. Right. But in the end, he's an NFL caliber athlete from a wrestling family. He's going to get there. Yeah. Yeah, it's practically guaranteed. Yeah. So as far as anything else on the show, being a WCW fan, what did you think of Triple H versus Sting? I mean, I have such a hard time taking Triple H seriously. Did you watch the Max Landis thing? No, huh? Do you know what I'm talking about? No, huh? Oh, he put out a short called... Oh, why am I... people are going to hate me for this. I can't remember if it's called Wrestling Isn't Wrestling or Wrestling Ain't Wrestling. Where it's an all-female cast acting out his interpretation of the Triple H character from the beginning through now. Oh, that's outstanding. And that's when you said I can't take Triple H seriously, that's immediately what I thought of. Yes, it's Wrestling Isn't Wrestling. I thought so. I just wanted to make sure. So yes, watch that as soon as you can. Okay, I will be getting on this. Oh, yeah. I saw this thing. I didn't actually watch it though. I will be doing. You did hear about it, but you hadn't watched it. Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Like now that I'm seeing the video and I'm seeing the visual, yeah. Mm-hmm. But it is the most insecure interpretation of the Triple H character. Yeah, I mean, and yeah. Oh no, go ahead. Well, and that plays into Sunday with the Terminator entrance the night after he inducts Arnold into the Hall of Fame and all that, and yeah. So go ahead. Yeah, no, I mean, I have never I would have liked to see Sting win it. I mean, yeah. I get that wasn't going to happen, but Sting to me was just the essence of what I enjoyed about professional wrestling. Mm. And it would have been it would have been great personally for me to see that. But I mean, I thought it was as matches between gentlemen of their advanced ages go. That was about as good as you were going to get. Right. I liked how it started, where they kind of did the fake Triple H fake Flair Sting match, and then it ended up becoming, and I think the term I kept using on Twitter and stuff was awesomely stupid. Yeah. Yeah, which is all that you could expect from them at this point. You know what I mean? Like the curse of unrealistic expectations. Like, I think that was why I was as impressed as I was with the Undertaker Wyatt match too. Same reason, that like the fact that the Undertaker was able to perform the stuff that he was, and you can kind of mask your physical deficiencies with sheer technical knowledge and like the ability to sell it. Like that's very much how I felt about Triple H and Sting as well. Right. And I was pleasantly surprised that Sting was able to pull out his big dive, and I think that almost made it worth it to pull out the NWO and the DX stuff, because he had a giant pile of guys to land on. Yeah. Like, even if someone didn't like the rest of that stuff, and I can see why, even though I kind of liked it, I thought that was worth it, because that sort of in your head planted the idea that, okay, he's not old, he's not broken down, he's still able to do his Sting stuff. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you can sell it just enough.
Right. And let's see. So what else was there? I feel like I'm blanking on this all of a sudden for some reason, even though I shouldn't. The end of Orton versus Rollins was... I can't believe that they didn't push it on Raw more. I don't think they talked about it. If either not too extensively, if at all.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know.
Because he's done a lot of impressive RKOs, and it was probably mostly thanks to Rollins, but the timing and everything on that was so perfect.
Well, especially, I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's been forgotten because of the way the main event ended. Like,
well, yes, and because it was no longer the Rollins talking point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess,
I think it's unfortunate because it was a good match.
Yes.
I mean, I enjoyed it. Like, it was really fun. And it's unfortunate that it's gotten overshadowed that way. But hey, what are you going to do?
I guess the other thing I really want to ask you about was Rusev's entrance.
Oh, Jesus. So good. So good. Like, this is, I mean, so there's an MMA promotion in Poland called KSW, and it's known for just over-the-top production and whatnot. But at one point, a fighter in KSW did an entrance in a tank. Rusev's was infinitely better. I mean, just Rusev as a character is great. Like, speaking of things that, like, drew me back in, I enjoy the hell out of Rusev. Mm-hmm. Like, just I enjoy his whole thing. I enjoy Lana. I think their whole thing is great. And it was a great match too. I mean, I enjoyed the Rusev Cena match. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I thought that was really good too. I thought it was their best match so far too. I saw a lot of people saying the one they had last month's pay-per-view was better, but I enjoyed this one more, if just for the, semi-annual Cena does a wacky new move part, where he did the big flying Stone Cold Stunner thing. Mm-hmm. But overall, very enjoyable WrestleMania. I would put it as one of the best. I'm not sure exactly where I put it just yet, because there was something about it that I don't know if I would put it as the best. I thought the main event was the best WrestleMania main event ever, though.
I mean, that was absolutely incredible. I mean, I cannot praise it highly enough, and not just because I love Lesnar. Like, the whole feel of it was great, and the crowd was great, and it felt like a WrestleMania main event is supposed to feel,
right?
If that makes any sense at all. Like, it felt big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think being the Lesnar style match in a WrestleMania main event just added so much, and then the finish with it kind of coming out of nowhere, and then the way the crowd reacted, where you had all these grown men jumping up and down and hugging each other, and you could like practically everyone on the camera side in front of the divider was jumping up and down and hugging each other, and it was just such a cool visual too.
No, it was great. I mean, especially when you're able to, when you know what the crowd expects and you're able to flip that on them, like that is peak storytelling right there. Right. Like, it doesn't matter, like, not even from the perspective of talking about wrestling. Like, just the ability to turn your audience's expectations against them is a hallmark of good storytelling, regardless of the medium. And like, the fact that they were able to do that in such a win-win fashion for everybody, like that was absolutely inspired storytelling.
Right. I think also it surprised everyone because it seemed like the way the match was laid out that Reigns was going to win. Mm-hmm. That, the whole thing, kind of asking Lesnar to hit him and smiling as he hit him, and that whole thing that it was, oh, Reigns is a tough guy and people are going to like him now, that whole thing. So when he didn't actually win, it was an even bigger surprise.
Yeah, exactly. That, like, everybody knew how it was supposed to go, and, the crowd felt themselves getting into Reigns despite themselves and despite knowing what the outcome was supposed to be. They, you could feel them getting there for him. And then, like, to have Rollins come in at that exact moment was fantastic. Like, it could not possibly have played better. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I just thought it was unbelievably brilliant.
So I want to take a quick break just to talk about a couple things before we move on, which is if you are enjoying this or the trademarks or want me to experiment with whatever in terms of unusual writing, or that's probably a very weird way to put it, but just if you want to support my various endeavors, if you go to davidbix.com, where you can find this podcast and a blog that is basically just this podcast so far, you can see at the top menu that you can use my Amazon associate link, which if you listen to other podcasts, I think you know the deal, that if you just click that and go to Amazon and just kind of proceed as you normally do, then I get a percentage. And you can also look at my Patreon page. Patreon is, what is the best way to describe it? I guess sort of like Kickstarter, but not for an individual project, but not exactly. And you can choose, I believe, to either give someone a small amount of money at a time or even pay them a certain amount monthly, and you become a patron, as they put it, for the person who is creating the podcast or the writing or whatever. And gotten a couple people interested in it so far. I didn't plug it on the trademarks just because I felt like, yeah, it was the first episode of that. And until people started responding positively, I didn't really want to say anything. And then I mentioned it on Twitter. So now I'm mentioning it here. And, you know, if you don't want to, I understand. But if you feel like you want to, just try it out. And with the Amazon thing, if, you know, you may already have other podcasts that are begging you to do that. So, you know, try to work mine into the rotation if you already are. And I guess that's the best way to put it. Well, at least for me to do it, because I'm not good at speaking on my own as I am in a back and forth conversation. So let's get back to talking, Patrick.
Yes, indeed. So we got a.
I love how you just agreed with me saying how bad I was talking on my own.
No, I actually had not been entirely paying attention to that. I was looking at something on Twitter, and then I thought that was my cue. You're doing fine, Bix. You're doing fine. Don't worry.
So this Saturday is kind of it's an interesting UFC fight night. It's a better card than they've had for a lot of these lately, and it's not actually a fight night, even though it's called that. It is UFC fight morning, UFC fight afternoon from Fairfax, Virginia.
Yeah, fight morning for me. I guess fight afternoon for you.
Yes, because you are on the West Coast. So yes, I'm guessing you're not going to get up at 7 a.m. for the prelims. Well, actually, it's 8 a.m. I think, because they're billing it as 10 a.m., but 10 a.m. is the pregame show.
Yeah, no, I will not be up for that. I will be catching up. Actually, probably that afternoon. I may catch the main event live. Just because I don't want to miss that. I think that's just about as good of a featherweight fight as you can make outside the upcoming championship matchup. But you know, there are really two awesome fights on this card. The main event and then Iaquinta Masvidal are just like Iaquinta Masvidal especially is just my everything. Like, that's a great fight.
So Mendes versus Lamas, I think I feel like it's an interesting fight for this card because it feels like a card where they are experimenting and feel like they think they can draw a bigger rating than usual, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I think that's probably correct.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't even looked. Is there something on that night that they had to do this date that precluded it, or is this just a straight up experiment? Oh
yeah, isn't there? I think there are Final Four matchups.
Okay.
That night.
So I don't know if they just decided that they had to do a card this week or whatever, but I mean, as these fight night cards go, though, this is the strongest in a long time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is about as good as it's going to get on this platform. And really, what occurs to me. So the thing is, Saturday Final Four matchups. Starting at 3 Pacific time, 6:10 Eastern. Mm-hmm. So that's why they're doing it. But yeah, I mean, they have to hit a specific number of events on Fox Sports 1. And I think that's what this is really about. But you know, I don't think it's a bad thing to kind of mix it up. Not everything has to be a Saturday night fight night. I don't mind the shows on Sunday. Really, in terms of bookings, this is what a Fox Sports 1 card is supposed to look like. They just rarely do because of injuries and because these are the first things to get the short end of the stick. when you've got to move fights around to bolster pay-per-views and to bolster Fox cards. Like
right.
this is the ideal design. It's just we rarely get to this point with everything intact.
Right. So I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I kind of want to go through I don't want to go through all the fights, but I'm going to want to at least comment on most of them, just because, like I said, it is a much better fight night lineup than usual, and I just want to kind of explain why. But the main event, we've got Chad Mendes against Ricardo Lamas, and it's pretty much the top two fighters that aren't in the upcoming title fight or Frankie Edgar, and it should be a hell of a fight. Lamas is a guy that I had been kind of called on for whatever reason, not as a talent, because he's obviously a top featherweight, but just as someone to watch, because even though he had pretty exciting fights, I don't know if it was the performance against Edgar, I don't know if it's that he doesn't like to promote fights much, but he just seemed like a boring fighter to me, if that makes sense.
Okay, so I think I can explain this.
But anyway, what I was going to say, though, was until he beat Dennis Bermudez the way he did, and then all of a sudden I was like, okay, this guy is awesome, and he's clearly an elite featherweight.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think I can explain your kind of mental disconnect on Lamas, because I felt the same way for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And the root fact of the matter is that nothing about Lamas's game really stands out. Right? Like if you're just looking at him as a collection of skills and physical tools, like he's an above average athlete. He's a very plus athlete, and he hits pretty hard. But from a skills perspective, he's a good striker, but he's not a great one. He'll string together, two punches and a kick, or a punch and a kick. And, and he doesn't have a great sense of distance. Like he's not going to put together like beautiful, multi-punch combinations and finish with just this beautiful kick to this beautiful low kick as he's stepping across into an angle. Like that's not Ricardo Lamas's game. He's not a great wrestler. He can get you down, but he's not gonna shoot a Chad Mendes double on you in open space and just blast you to the mat. If he has a plus skill set, really it's his top game. He has an exceptional top game, but again, he's not an awesome wrestler, so we don't get to see it as much as we should. But what makes Lamas a top fighter is exactly what you saw against Bermudez. It's that he has the most insane killer instinct I think I've ever seen in a fighter, where like it takes him from being a guy who would not crack the top 20 to being a top 5 fighter, just because anytime you make even the slightest mistake, Lamas is going to be on you. Now, the problem is Lamas doesn't do a very good job of creating openings for himself. He's not a guy who's going to force you into a scramble where you can make a mistake that he can capitalize on. It's like, if you screw up, Lamas will be there, Mm-hmm. So if Lamas is fighting guys who have a really sound process, who just don't screw up, like Jose Aldo or even Hakran Diaz, who's one of Aldo's teammates, but fights very similarly, just, without the verve and, being one of the best in the world, like Hakran Diaz just doesn't make mistakes, and Lamas barely won that fight because he didn't get anything to capitalize on. And Aldo obviously didn't give him anything because he's Aldo. Like, so if you don't screw up, you're going to beat Lamas fairly handily. But the second that you mess up, Lamas is going to rearrange your face in fairly epic fashion.
Now, this is probably going to go up Wednesday, maybe Thursday. I'm guessing your preview goes up Wednesday?
Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm.
But if I had to guess, you're picking Mendes, though?
I am picking Mendes just because, Mendes is 16 and 2 fights with Jose Aldo.
Right.
I have Mendes by decision, and I don't know that this is actually going to be an awesome fight. I think it's going to be a fight where some awesome things happen, but neither guy works at a real quick pace. So I think we're going to get long stretches of not inactivity, but long stretches where not a ton happens. And then they're going to be crazy bursts of violence. And I think that Mendes could knock out Lamas, but I don't think it's super likely. I think the most likely scenario is a convincing 5-round decision for Mendes. But, with that said, when you get two guys who are really skilled in a cage, you're going to see something worth watching.
We actually took more time on everything than I realized we would. So let's try to run through these a little quickly. I mean, the only other fight of consequence that I think we really need to go more than one line or anything on is Jorge Masvidal against Al Iaquinta. Masvidal has kind of turned into the gatekeeper to the top 10. If you lose to him, you're not going to end up in the top 10. If you beat him, you're a top 10 fighter. Do you think Iaquinta is going to beat him?
I do, yeah. So just kind of on a number of different levels, like Iaquinta has turned into a ridiculously good striker in a variety of ways, and Connor and I broke this down in a lot of depth on the episode of Heavy Hands that'll come out tomorrow. But just the way that that Iaquinta is always over his feet, he's never reaching with his shots, allows him to string together much longer combinations than we normally see in MMA. You know, he can throw 3, 4, 5, 6 punches at a time and finish with a kick because he's never throwing himself out of position in order to land, which is very common in MMA because of the distances involved. The distances are longer, the cage is bigger, there's more space, so it exacerbates bad technical problems from that we see from fighters. But Iaquinta is not like that. He moves in the pocket. He's happy to be in there and bang with you. He does really interesting technical things. He's a bigger hitter than Masvidal is, and I think that's going to be the difference. Like I think it goes to a decision, but I like Iaquinta based on that output because he's throwing these long combinations, and based on the power edge. I think he drops Masvidal at some point, takes 2 or 3 rounds, and gets it done. But he's also just a tremendously fun dude. You know, like Iaquinta could be a legit star, especially as they move into the New York market more.
He's Weidman if Weidman had more of a personality.
Exactly. They're both Herb Rose, you know? I don't know if did you catch the promo he cut after he knocked out Ross Pearson?
Yes, about going to Mexico and hanging out with the senoritas.
No, that was after he beat Lozon.
Yeah. So was that the Iron Sheik one then?
Yeah, he was gonna camel clutch a kangaroo, suplex jaws. Like the dude gets it in a way that is hard to describe.
By the way, I'd like to point out I live about 20 minutes from where he's from, Wantagh on Long Island.
Oh yeah,
as you can tell, not everyone on Long Island sounds like that.
Yeah, no, that very much seems like an Al Iaquinta thing.
Yeah, Weidman's not from too far from here either. It's one of those things, like, nobody I know sounds like that.
Just Iaquinta?
No, I mean, nobody I know from around here, like where I am in the Long Beach or anywhere around here. Nobody really sounds like that. It's when you see on TV and they're like, but I don't sound like that. Don't think everyone from Long Island sounds like that.
See, I really enjoyed like getting to know some of the people that are involved in that MMA community. Like I've now interviewed Sarah. I interviewed Ray Longo this last week, who's just like the coolest dude. Really enjoyed talking with him, and Lou Neglia, the Ring of Combat promoter, and like it blows my mind how tight knit they all are. That they all have known each other for fucking ever.
Yeah.
Forever they've known each other. Like, you know, like Longo, I can't remember if he told the story on the air or after we finished, but Longo was talking about like having like running around with Lou Neglia in like 1986. Like, and you get a sense for the depth of it. And it really kind of blew me away. I just really enjoyed talking to all of them, but you can see, there's a trust in the way that Al Iaquinta and Ray Longo relate to each other that is a very special thing between a trainer and a coach. And you can see exactly how Iaquinta has made the jumps in his striking that he has when you talk to Ray Longo about him, and you can see how much kind of mental energy and focus Longo has put into his game specifically.
Now, I want to run down just the other fights, like I said, just a little bit. We don't really need to say much about them, just kind of... Really, except for the first 2 prelims, there's something interesting about all of them.
Mm-hmm. And you're not going to hear me say anything positive about Timothy Johnson and Shamil Abdurrahimov because that's a bad fight between 2 fighters who just aren't very good. But even Jones Stallings is a solid fight. Like, Jones is a legit talented guy. Stallings is better than his 12-7 record indicates. That could actually be a fun fight. I'm interested in Maynard Yakovlev because Maynard is shot and his chin is shot, but Yakovlev is pretty pillow-fisted. So if Maynard is going to stick around, if Maynard is ever going to win another fight, this is going to be the guy. This is going to be the guy that he beats. You know what I mean?
We will know for sure after this fight whether or not I guess should's not the right word because it sure seems like he shouldn't be, but whether or not you think he retires if he loses this, that he's on the prelims and he's
Yeah.
facing a guy who just moved down, who, as you said, is known to be pillow-fisted.
I would have to think so. And, if I were advising him, I would have advised him to retire anyway. Because, Maynard is not one of the dudes who needs the money. Maynard has money from his past pursuits, as far as I know, and has been smart with the money that he's made during his MMA career. He's not one of these dudes who's going to be hustling for 2 to show and 2 to win on a regional card. I think when he's done, he's done. And I think he's doing this for the pride of it. So I would hope that win or lose, he retired. But that's just me.
And then the rest of the fights, at least going down on the main card, Michael Chiesa against Mitch Clark, which I feel like is kind of the sleeper fight of the night.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a huge Chiesa fan, and not just because he's from Eastern Washington, as am I. So we're both repping the 509. But I actually legitimately think that Chiesa is on his way to becoming a very good fighter. I thought that he would have beaten Lozon had that fight continued. I had him up to the point where it was stopped due to the cut. I think that Clark is just the perfect matchup for Chiesa to show off his skills. I think Clark is basically a not as good and not as physically talented version of Chiesa.
That does sound accurate in a number of ways, including appearance.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Both bearded ass lightweights from the northwest part of the continent. I don't know about you, Bix. I'm pretty interested in the return of Juliana Pena.
I am too. I think she wins pretty handily, though.
She should, yeah.
Assuming her knee's not completely destroyed,
which it may have been. Yeah. Speaking of repping the 509, Juliana Pena, another Eastern Washington native.
Teammate of Chiesa.
Yeah, they are. They both train at Sick Jitsu, which is in Spokane, the home of Gonzaga University. My mother's alma mater, but seriously, don't go to Spokane. She's fighting Milana Dudieva, who's kind of like a low rent version of the other fighters we've seen coming out of the North Caucasus. Big right hand, doesn't throw very much volume, nice hip tosses and takedowns, but other than that, nothing terribly special.
Clay Guida, Robbie Peralta seems like just kind of a barometer of where Guida's at right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fight that Guida should win. I'm really interested to see what Peralta's doing. I didn't realize this, but Peralta has apparently been at TriStar training under Firas Zahabi, which, that's the kind of move that Peralta should have made years ago. Because he was always a guy who had a ton of talent, but he just never it wasn't that he trained hard, that he didn't train hard either, but, he never had great coaches. He never had great training partners. He was always a part-time fighter. Mm-hmm. So I'm stoked to see, can Peralta kind of finally reach the physical potential that he pretty clearly has. But also, you got to wonder how much Guida's got left in the tank at this point.
And then I'm just going to, we already talked about Maynard and Yakovlev, and then the last two, we want to see if we can squeeze in anything after this, maybe just a minute or two, but Dustin Poirier moves up to lightweight against Carlos Diego Ferreira. Is it Ferreira? Do you pronounce none of the R's as R's, or one of them as R?
You pronounce the second batch as
so
R's.
Ferreira.
Yeah, Ferreira.
That's an interesting fight. I feel like you'll get too into analytical mode if we talk about it.
Yeah. To give you my brief thoughts, Poirier moving up in weight, despite the fact that he's going to be giving up a little size to Ferreira, but actually probably not. I think Ferreira is 5'9", and he's maybe a little thicker than Poirier is. But as long as Poirier stays out of extended grappling situations, he should be fine. He's so much more skilled than Ferreira is. If you get outstruck by the 6 months ago version of Benny Dariush, who was not a bad striker, but he wasn't as good an offensive striker as Poirier is now. If you get outstruck by that dude, Dustin Poirier is going to put real leather on you. Long story short.
And Liz Carmouche versus Lauren Murphy, which could be a boring fight or could be an exciting fight, probably with little middle ground.
Yeah, I think it's going to tend more towards the boring side of things. Murphy just has a lot of trouble staying off her back. And based on what we saw from her against McMahon, I think that Carmouche is going to push her to the fence, take her down. And the second that they're on the ground, she is going to sit and guard, drive her head into Murphy's chest and just kind of land short shots. And that's about it for 3 rounds.
Murphy to me feels like a fighter one of those fighters who we really don't know how good she is because she got an inflated reputation, it seemed like, based on people who didn't know how she won the Invicta title.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a really good way to put it.
That it was an injury to Miriam Nakamoto who had been dominating her.
Yeah. Miriam Nakamoto.
And it wasn't even on anything that Murphy did. I mean, her knee just kind of exploded all of a sudden.
Yeah, Murphy was getting, Miriam Nakamoto, for lack of a better term, was beating 7 shades of shit out of Lauren Murphy before the injury. Like, that was not pretty. Murphy, I don't think Murphy would have made it to the final bell, but for the knee injury, like, that was ugly. And you know, like, you got to give Murphy props because she's not a bad fighter at all. But I think that Carmouche that she's running into the worst kinds of matchups for her in that division. Like, I think if you put Murphy in there with somebody like Raquel Pennington, I think that would be a really good fight. But when you put her in there with really big, really strong, physically overpowering takedown machines like Sarah McMahon and now Carmouche as well, we're not getting to see what actually makes Murphy a good fighter.
So we have like just a minute or two before you, and I guess me too, since you asked me to, need to move on to other matters. But I feel like if I ask you about Glory, even just the main event, it'll go on for a while. For one sentence, I guess, though, it's watching just for the main event, right?
Oh, this Glory card?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the main event, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that in general, Glory cards are worth watching. Van Roosmalen and Ristie is an awesome fight. Actually, the featherweight title fight between Gabriel Varga and Mosab Amrani is going to be fantastic. As the middleweight tournament could be really good, or it could be crappy. It depends on what version of Simon Marcus shows up. Like, I think this is supposed to set up Simon Marcus versus Artem Levin, or Simon Marcus versus Joe Schilling. But if Marcus comes out looking like he has in the past, then we're not going to get that, and it's going to be a non-crowd favorite and not a guy that people know well winning that tournament and getting set up in another match. But yes, Van Roosmalen and Ristie is one of the very best fights in kickboxing. Varga Amrani is going to be awesome. I highly recommend that you watch. These are really, really genuinely skilled dudes.
Although, keep in mind, it is Spike, and it was recorded and it's being pre-taped earlier in the day in another country, so remember, since Spike only do pre-recorded, and if it's live, it's pre-recorded on the West Coast, so stay away from spoilers if you're watching Glory this week. Yeah,
don't mute liverkick.com for the time being, which you should all be following because it's the best place for kickboxing.
Yes. And the other thing, I just wanted to talk for a minute or two about UFC Strawweight division, but mostly Joanna Jedrzejczyk, and I hope I did a good enough job there with her name.
Oh, you killed it. That was perfect.
I've been practicing in front of the mirror.
That's good media right there, Bix. That's good media.
So I really don't know who beats her because it's a striker-heavy division. Better strikers pretty significantly than the bantamweight division, but no one close to her level. And she completely destroyed one of the few wrestlers in the division. So is there anyone beating her? At least that's under contract.
So
other than maybe Gadeha, yeah.
I think that, well, first of all, I actually did score that fight for Claudia Gadelha when they fought. But I'm not mad that Jedrzejczyk got the decision. I just thought it was a close fight. Could have gone either way. In this case, who's going to beat her? Whoever beats her, as counterintuitive as this sounds, is going to be somebody who's down to strike with her and then works takedowns off of that. You can't go out there and just try and wrestle her and give her all the space and all the time in the world and nothing to think about other than stuffing your takedowns and expect that to work at all. And if that was in fact the game plan from Esparza, and I don't think it was, I think that she got out there, she got hit a couple of times, and suddenly the plan changed. Like, you can't beat her like that just by spamming takedowns. No matter how good your cardio is and no matter how good a wrestler you are, if there's anything that we've learned about MMA in the last decade, that's it. You can't just spam takedowns. I actually think that somebody like, if Alexa Grasso, who's in Invicta, if Grasso were a little better takedown artist, I would say that Grasso's work rate could give her trouble, just because Grasso tends to throw a lot of volume, and Jedrzejczyk, for all of her power, is not like a super high volume striker. I would say that there's that. So I think that there will be interesting challenges for her, if not people that I would ever pick to beat her. Like if you throw in Joanne Calderwood with her, Joanne Calderwood is going to get absolutely destroyed. Like that's not a competitive fight.
And it looks like that's pretty much a lock to happen, although I don't really know much about her opponent next week.
I've got to do my tape study, but based on what I've seen, no, this match drastically favors Calderwood. She should be 4 or 5 to 1 favorite at least.
And yeah, is there anyone who's even going to at least that you think's not going to get finished by her, other than maybe Gadea?
I think Grasso could make it to the final bell with her.
Well, I mean, at least that's. I was going to say that's under
in
that's
UFC right now.
Although it seems like it's a matter of time before Grasso gets maybe even within the next few weeks.
Yeah, so that there's a whole thing there with Grasso and Invicta in the UFC and Shannon Knapp not wanting it to seem like Invicta is somehow beholden to the UFC, even though they obviously are. So that's a whole thing there. But in terms of people who are under contract right now, somebody like Angela Hill could be interesting down the road just because of the physical talent. But kind of in general, no, there's nobody right now who I would pick to even make it to the final bell with Jedrzejczyk, based on how she looked against Esparza. And
based on you not mentioning her among those not under contract, I'm guessing that you would not pick Jessica Aguilar to do well against her either.
Yeah, I think Jessica Aguilar is benefiting from a win from some wins that were a long time ago, while the division has really, really evolved around her. I don't think that Aguilar would be one of the top 3 or 4 women's strawweights in the UFC right now.
Well, I had fun talking. I don't know about you.
I had a very good time. Thank you very much for having me, Bix.
Yes, this is my pleasure, and this was the first episode. I hope it did not go too terribly. If so, I'm sure people will let me know, as they always do. But again, I just wanted to mention before we finish off the show that if you want to check out past episodes of, well, not this, but if you want to check out the first episode of The Trademarks, which I did with Dylan Hales, or future episodes of this, if you're listening to this at some point in the future when much of the show will become irrelevant, then go to davidbix.com, and I'd prefer you go there so you can check out my Patreon link, my Amazon Associates link, maybe help me get some money for this. But we're also available through voiceswrestling.com's feed. And I guess that's it. I guess I'll let you get your plugs in, and then I'll sign off. Take a look at my preview article for this upcoming card on SureDog.com. And also, I should have an article on the top 10 prospects in all of MMA coming out at some point in the next week or so. You can follow me on Twitter at Patrick_Wyman. But yeah, no, thank you. It's been fun. And yeah, follow me on Twitter at DavidBix. And yeah, I guess I'll talk to you, well, technically later, but then down the road, I'm going to help provide you with various wrestler and MMA fighters in wrestling videos, so you can do some kind of wacky list at SureDog, and so you can write about Ernesto Hoost wrestling against Bob Sapp and all sorts of fun things like that. So thank you. I hope everyone enjoyed this. Understand that it'll probably get better since I'm a little rusty, and talk to you all again soon.
Come on.
Fix. Fix.